Hello and welcome to Strategy Hunt. My name is Sandeep. And right now, I have with me the wonderful Nidhi Salgame. For people who are not really aware of her, she is the curator and the founder of Wander Beyond Boundaries. Wander Beyond Boundaries actually, you know, it kind of takes people to kind of wander beyond the boundaries of themselves and obviously the terrains that perhaps they have not really traversed in. So, Nidhi, to begin with, what exactly was there in your mind when you actually thought of, perhaps coming out with this unique concept and, curating such wonderful trips for people?
Wander Beyond Boundaries, Sandeep, was a thought, an idea. The idea was to move beyond what we perceive was possible. And that's been how I've lived my life personally. And when Sati and I, my partner in life and
Yeah,
business, when we got together, we said, why don't we make this happen for more people? Because we were doing this ourselves. And that's how the idea of small group expeditioning started. And we've evolved into a platform for willing 4x4 self drive enthusiasts who want to test themselves and reach out to remote lands across the earth in an effort to, more than anything else, recalibrate their own lens, the way they view life and what meaning it holds. Just to be able to soak in multiple realities, to be able to, see where their perspective on those realities and to see how we can grow as individuals.
wonderful. Nidhi, you were also the first woman to do this transcontinental drive from India to London. You've got to tell me about that because that's a huge feat and people are not really aware of it. So you've got to actually orient people about, I mean, this huge achievement for them. And trust me, people, it is not
You
an exaggeration.
know, Delhi, London seems so far back, man. It's almost
But
seven,
still,
7 years plus now.
and
And
not to forget, the drive in Trans Siberia.
oh, yeah, that was tougher though. Delhi, London was a logistics nightmare. It was just it was a lot of paperwork. Again, it came from a place wherein I wanted to see what more was possible. And it was a breakthrough of sorts because by then, by 2015, one had done most of the so called tough roads all over India. And this was coming from a place of where, what next? And that's how Delhi London happened. It happened with no money, it happened with just a
With
dream.
no
And
money.
it took,
Are you kidding me?
yeah, it took a lot of slogging. I remember when I first thought of Delhi, London, I mustn't have had more than 2000 something in my account. I didn't have a vehicle. So,
Are you serious?
and yeah, and it took a lot of slogging, moving mountains, literally, metaphorically, to really make it happen. It was a personal journey, to be honest. It was not really to prove to the world or set a record. It was about testing one's mettle and seeing if one can make it possible. And by the grace of the universe, it was possible. It was hugely testing. What should have taken 50 odd days took me 97 days. It was 23,800 kilometers. Got stuck in multiple landslides, a lot of visas expiring, and it had its own drama, let me put it that way. And
Mm.
finally, when one did it, it was extremely validating that if you have a dream and you work your ass off to make it happen, and it does happen, and it is the learning is in enduring everything that comes in between, and that has been every single journey for me.
And what about the pool of gold? Northeastern
Oh, the
Siberia.
pole of course.
Asians
Now in
were the first someone to drive the polar pool as well.
Yeah, after Delhi, London, I was like, what next, and how tough can it get? And that was India's first overland solo to the pole of cold in the
Yes,
peak.
yes, yes.
And in hindsight, it was a bit of a death wish, to be honest. But because it was extremely grueling, I was stepping into the unknown. It was solo. I was in unknown land, and I was faced with weather that wasn't helping. I saw a minus
Mm.
60 road, 60, and that's a lot for the human body to endure, and more so the
Exactly.
machine. So it was, and again, it came from a very personal place of wanting to say how far you can push. And I think that's the beauty about my life and my work, where it's never been about the outside. The journey has always started within,
From
and it is,
within.
yeah, and it has been about testing oneself and, transcending boundaries that you yourself have for yourself.
Right. Absolutely. But I've got to ask you, ladies and gentlemen, first to kind of give you a little bit of an introduction. The thing is, Nidhi had organized a media drive, and we were off-roading in Nagaland. And over the course of these 8 days, for that matter, Nidhi and I actually struck a very beautiful, a very intimate kind of a rapport over the conversations that we've had. And Nidhi, from what I figured out, is that you have a profound sense of, what's coming next. Much as to say, do you believe in afterlife?
I um I definitely know we are souls, and we meet each other not by chance, not by coincidence, but for a reason. And I truly believe that this journey is about helping people you meet along the way and learning from each interaction. So
Wow.
if that's an afterlife, that is it.
Hmm. I get that. I get that. There is so much to ask. There's so much to say, and there's so much for people to know. Unfortunately, I mean, my audience is definitely they're aware of the fact that I am done with speaking to actors and actresses, and people who are I mean, they are too full of themselves for that matter, and to a certain extent, the way they are in front of the camera, they are not exactly the same. Most of the people, most of the audiences are not really aware of the fact, which is why they end up idolizing. It has always been my endeavor, my earnest endeavor, to kind of speak to people who are real, people who are behind the lens, people who actually do most of the job. And unfortunately, I've not really been very successful in my endeavor. Thankfully, I met you, Nidhi. And, you know, this is for the people, this is for the audiences watching. Uh, Nidhi I mean, her partner is deceased, and he was a colonel, rather. And it was his, what you call that? I'd say brainchild, if I'm not wrong, Nidhi, to kind of,
Uh,
put all of this together. And the two of them have done such wonderful journeys in the remote corners of Munsiari, in the unexplored Kashmir. And there are so many, places that they have been to. You've got to kind of elucidate a little bit about your late husband and the kind of person that he was, and the fact that you are a lady with such grit. How was your husband? I mean, could he handle you?
I guess he was the only one. He was one extremely secure man, and we had a beautiful relationship. We sought the same things from life, and that's what made it even more beautiful. We'd been through a piece of, our phase of shit, if as plainly as that. And when
Mm.
we came to, it was about creating memories for a lifetime and nothing else. And there was immense positivity. And he being from the army and me having done this all along, and both of us having seen merit in such travel, we said, why not make it happen for a larger bunch? And that's how Wander Beyond Boundaries came about.
Yeah.
It was him because while on the drive, I was the lead, and he had to be the float, not even sweep.
Acha.
I think he gave me a lot of inner strength and validation, and I grew as a person with him, and so did he. So it was very mutual and very beautiful.
Yeah.
I am as content and at peace today. It is thanks to all the validation that he gave me in his living life. And it's a matter of time, I believe, before we meet again. And we're going
Absolutely.
no.
Absolutely. And I'm sure he gives validation that you require even now. Now the fact that he's not there around, but in soul he surely is.
He is
Nidhi,
around, and I feel him
now
so
before
many
we go
times.
ahead, absolutely,
Yeah,
absolutely.
go
Please go
ahead.
on. Please go on.
No, no, I said it's. I feel him around so many times, and I'm aghast at how much of contentment and peace he has left me with, and how much of emotional stability he's left me with. And he's left me with, more than anything else, such a beautiful family called Wander Beyond Boundaries. We're pretty much
Yeah,
like a tribe who traveled with us, have been there for me in this period. And that has been the most validating part of this entire thing, that we've created a family of our own. So that's been beautiful.
absolutely, absolutely. Now, Nidhi, before we go ahead, there are certain terms that this off-roading actually entails. People are not really aware of them. For instance, we talk about float, we talk about sweep, or the leap for that matter. Many people will not really be aware of these terms. If you could be kind enough to please, shed some light on them.
So it's basically how convoys are managed, Sandeep. I mean, when you drive as a
And by
convoy.
convoy, it is actually a fleet of cars, you mean? Is that right?
Yes, yes.
Yeah.
So, drive. My job as the leader of the expedition is to set us up for success and to make sure that every single person and vehicle is safe and sound and happy and comes back in that frame of mind. So there's a certain order with which we run it. So you have a lead, which is the car ahead, and you have a sweep, which is the last car. So nobody overtakes the lead and nobody falls behind sweep. So the convoy stays in between that. And you have
Mm,
float, which is the only car with the mobility to keep overtaking and falling back, which
mm,
typically has for the photographers and the videographers, given that they need shots at different points in time. And the
yeah.
order of convoy is basis the terrain we are facing that day and the ability of the drivers that we have on board, and who might need recovery to who might not. So it's a bit of a it's just about keeping everyone safe and driving in a certain format that keeps us all safe.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. So I guess people, you're now at least aware, and these are not jargons anymore to you. Um, Niti, the next question that I have for you is that, I mean, off-roading in Nagaland is definitely a different genre altogether. But when we're talking about Kashmir and a beautiful place like Kashmir, you've got to give me a little detail, a little bit of a, perhaps a little bit of a gist for that matter, about the off-roading scene in Kashmir.
I think, see, it's really not off roading classically. Off roading is pretty much the medium for the kind of work I do. I'm more
Mm.
comfortable calling extreme overlanding. Overlanding is travel by.
Overlanding, yeah, right, right, right.
And the expeditions that I curate and we've done so far are all extreme overland expeditions, primarily the extremity coming from either terrain or the weather or just the sheer remoteness of the location.
Mm.
Sometimes even endurance, like Delhi London was endurance brought in the extremity. You just had to
Yeah.
endure so many. Siberia was about the weather and the snow and the different kinds of snow and ice terrain that you saw there. So that brought in the extremity. Now in Nagaland, what brings in the extremity is yes, the road for sure. The fact that they are mud tracks with stone and gravel,
Yes.
all of that, and
And
slush,
dust and grime.
dust, and all of that, and the fact that there's virtually zero infrastructure, but you
Yeah,
yet
absolutely.
you still meet some of the warmest people, some of the
Yes,
most hospitable.
yes.
So I think so that's where this becomes an extreme overland kind of a scenario. So in North Kashmir, for example, the one that we did was across Shamshabadi in the peak of winters. Now people know of Kashmir as the usual suspects like Pahalgam and Gulmarg and Srinagar and
Gulmarg and
Dal.
Sonmarg and all of those places. Yes.
But for us, we've always looked at regions and destinations beyond the perceptive tourist lens. So actually, Shamshabadi is the ridge that kind of it cradles the Kashmir Valley. So it's the ridge
Okay.
line. The other side is POK, and in the winters, the conditions are so tough. The traffic is virtually non-existent across the Shamshabadi. Though
Okay.
there are so we attempted doing a winter expedition back in 2021, in the month of February, wherein we crossed the Shamshabadi at three different places, Tangdhar
I
being
see.
one of them, Achil to, we tried crossing Razdan to Gurez, but the conditions got really extreme and we had to abandon that. So we reached like the top of Razdan. So that was the plan. And virgin beauty is what we seek. Real and
Yes,
authentic people who we gel with. And what comes in between in this seek is in this journey is what we endure, and we see beauty in that.
absolutely, absolutely. One more very pertinent question that I need to ask you is the fact that, in popular media and the way the popular media actually, speaks about places in the Northeast. For instance, you have Nagaland, you have Meghalaya, you have all of these places, you have Arunachal Pradesh. There is this perception of, I don't know whether it's a perception amongst people or it's a perception that's curated by the media, and then that's what people feed on. Uh, about I mean the fact that these places are replete with insurgencies, these places are filled with terrorism and all of that. But I mean the funniest part is when we were a part of the expedition, the overlanding trip for that matter. I as you just said very rightly that the people are so warm and they're so caring, so welcome that I literally I mean it seems really foolish to me that people, I mean, do this. I don't understand the sense behind this. So you've got to, throw some light on why such, perhaps the fact that you yourself say in Nagaland, why is there this perception about, I mean, all of these stupid and absolutely ridiculous
I
stuff?
think, yeah, I think, Sandeep, it boils down to the little you know, the more you make of it and adapt to popular narratives. So it's become that about the Northeast, especially Nagaland, which in my mind is one of the safest states to travel in. Yes, there has been insurgency in the past, but that has been a very pointed insurgency and a homegrown insurgency. And it is, only when you travel there do you realize how welcoming people are. So
Yes, absolutely.
the lesser you know about a place, it's so easy to kind of get mixed up in these narratives that get thrown at you from different points of view. Now, if you ask the army and whether there's insurgency, perhaps they'll say yes. So that's the narrative out there. Now, if you ask, let's say, a bunch of other people who have a different perspective, they'll say something else. If you ask me as a traveler who's lived and been to every single remote corner possible in the state, I will say there's none of it. Now, if you ask
Yeah,
yourself from before you landed here to after having completed the trip, I'm sure you'll say something different, right? So I think the
absolutely.
less the more removed you are from reality. And I think the only way to break this shackle is to
Is
actually
to
go and
go
see it.
there, experience there, live there, be a part of the
Absolutely.
entire crowd, then you understand what is what.
Seeing is believing, experiencing is believing, and the more people like you or us who come here and experience the place for what it is, the faster we'll be able to break this myth and stereotype that has surrounded this land, unfortunately.
Absolutely. Fingers crossed. Uh,
Yes.
Nidhi, you've got to shed some light on the plans that you have for Wander Beyond Boundaries at this point in time.
Wander beyond
And obviously in
boundaries.
the coming future, the near future for that matter.
Yeah. So, Wander Beyond Boundaries, we do limited work, but we do really killer work because my biggest skill set and strength I've realized over the years is to be able to do first of its kind and lesser known routes from an expedition standpoint. So, we're headed to Kyrgyzstan in Feb. That's a winter Kyrgyz drive in Feb. We're also headed to Uganda in Central Africa in May, and hopefully the northeast part of Russia by August or September. That's as far as WBB is concerned. As far as Nagaland is concerned, Nagaland off road is concerned, yes, we are happy to be flowing in if things work out another year of hard work to see that we give this more shape.
Right. Okay. when we're talking about places like Kyrgyzstan, we're talking about all of these wonderful places that you just mentioned. Uh, how do you think? I mean, people who are not really aware of, geographical do's and don'ts for that matter, where you should go, where you shouldn't go. It's a different terrain altogether. It's a different country altogether. How do you perhaps orient people who actually enroll with Wander Beyond Boundaries to explore these places? How do you orient people with, what you should do, how you should behave, how you should, perhaps react to a certain situation? How do you do that?
I am sure you went through the same grind. And if you noticed, I
Yes.
sent an email with a bunch of things to read. I think it's very important that we set the tone. And that's what we do. We actually send out a document called Setting Expectations to people who
Yeah.
enroll, because the idea is to see that you're coming in with a weathered sense of what you're going to get. It's really not a tourist experience. We function in a certain way. We've realized over the years that it works, and we'd like to continue doing so. We are well-meaning people, but that said, there are boundaries that we respect, and there are functional aspects of us working as a team too. So I think a large part of it is setting expectations, and none of our drives ever begin without an orientation, wherein I reiterate a lot of this face to face about what to expect on a daily basis, what the schedule is looking like, what the weather is going to be, what challenges you should expect, how you should prep for that, all of that. So I think it is in the way we lead our trips that we've not had issues per se. And also, it's a lot of prep that goes in the way we prepare to face extreme terrain or weather or remoteness or whatever. That is what I think sets us apart. And I'm sure you experienced some of that.
Yes, absolutely, absolutely, absolutely. I did. But what happened was, while I was, I was, in a group of 3 to 4 people, maybe in a cab, traveling from one place to the other. Uh, uh, there were some who were really very petrified of the fact that, oh my God, there's not going to be this, there's not going to be that. We are so accustomed to this. We should have got this, you should have got that. And all of that conversations happen. I'm sure you must be aware of this because this is a very typical mentality or psychology that people have. Uh,
Mm.
the fact that, when we are dealing with so many people together, everybody has a different mentality, everybody has a different thought process altogether. Um, did you ever encounter, or perhaps, or how do you plan to perhaps, deal with a person who's a tough nut to be cracked, per se, or he's not really, for instance, we had one person that had a little bit of a difference in opinion as far as the others are concerned. How would you perhaps deal with them?
Sandeep, you should be answering this for me.
Okay, I'm going to cut this part. I'm going to, I'm going to cut it. Come
Ah,
on, you're putting
eh,
the guy on a family.
okay, let me answer that if you want me to. I think the way you handle difference of opinion in a team is firstly by respecting that opinion. Each person, when they share something, when they say something, they're coming from a place that they truly believe in. And by ignoring or countering it to the point of hurt, I believe is disrespect to the opinion. So it is about respecting opinion, but also creating space as a team to disagree with the opinion. I think at the end of the
Yeah,
day, a lot of conflict gets avoided when you just agree to disagree. And
yeah,
as much
absolutely.
as it's not about, forcing your opinion on the other person, it is also about saying, okay, that's what you believe in. I respect that. But guess what? I disagree. And to have the courage and humility to say that in an acceptable manner, I think diffuses most tense situations. And that's what I have been trying to do all my life. And yeah, I haven't had unhappy teams. So that's a start.
All right. Now, when we were traveling through the nooks and corners of another land, there were these various, wonderful, eye-pleasing acts that were put up by the locals there. Unfortunately, what I kind of came across is that you did not quite reveal. I wouldn't call it unfortunate, but then you never quite revealed the fact that there was a lot of expenses incurred behind those performances. Behind, I mean, as I said, there is no free lunch, and I said this not here in this interview, but when we were, interacting with each other during the trip. Uh, why didn't you kind of make it apparent to everybody? And I still feel that there are so many who are not really aware of it. I'm talking about the group
But
that we were a part of.
it's just an ethos you go by. At the end of the day, at WBB and Nagaland Off-Road, I truly believe that there really are no free lunches. These are well-meaning people in remote villages who have other things to do than to entertain you. That said, they
Absolutely.
also culture groups and they're very proud of what they do, and they also seek opportunity to perform. But that performance comes at the cost of one day's work in the field or doing other things which they would have done, for themselves. So there definitely is a cost involved when you go out to these
Mm.
remote lands and you have
Yes.
cultural performances. But the good thing is it's a bit of a win-win, I believe, because it brings them together too as a culture group and gives them motivation to be able to perform the next time around that the team comes there. And they know they're compensated for their effort and time, which they've invested in either rehearsing, practicing, or putting up the final show. B, it also gives them the additional cash income, which, if you've noticed in Nagaland, it's a very self sustaining state of existence. And cash to come by is difficult. And I do believe
Yeah.
tourism will have a role to play in kickstarting that cash economy in the village at the village level. And that's where Nagaland Off Road comes in.
Right. Nidhi, I had spoken to the Chief Minister of Nagaland as well regarding this, and I'm
Mm.
going to ask you the same question. Why do you think, and what do you think would perhaps help improve the tourism structure in Nagaland, the tourism awareness in Nagaland, and the fact that Nagaland is, the Northeast, especially, not just Nagaland in particular, is such a beautiful place. It is so pristine, it is so pure. People are not aware of it. Very few people who are discerning travelers are aware of the place, and they wish to go. Perhaps that particular area in the entire map is in their wish list. What
Mm.
do you think could perhaps be done to better the situation?
We're doing what we can already, Sandeep, and it's a huge thing for a state government to invest in a project, an idea like Nagaland Off Road. I think this is a great start. At once, if Nagaland came out the regular tourist way and wanted to create conventional infrastructure, I don't believe for a fact that it would even sustain. That said, I think the way to go about is to introduce the land to travelers, not tourists, like you rightly
Yes,
call.
absolutely.
And the idea is to kind of calibrate that expectation that you have from travel and capitalize on strength. At the end of the day, the intent is to be sustainable. We should have these areas remaining the way they are even in years to come. And we don't want an influx of wanting butter chicken and paneer makhani in the
Yeah.
interiors, and we don't want people heading there with that expectation, nor do we want to be changing reality beyond recognition so such that all of that is available in the hinterland. So I think the way the government of Nagaland is going about it is brilliant, and a lot of that credit goes to Kito Simoni, the Commissioner Secretary for Tourism. um, and I think this is what could have been done, and very happy, and in fact humbled that they kind of chose us to be able to do it for them.
Right.
It's the right direction, and time will tell what route how it evolves over the next couple of years.
All right, Nidhi, finally, before I let you go, I want to ask one very pertinent question, a question that perhaps lingers in the minds of many. Unfortunately, they don't really have the answer. And whenever I put this statement out in public, I literally get a lot of weird glares, glances. I don't know what. I mean, I I keep on, harping on the fact that you need to be travelers and not tourists to actually experience a place in its rarest and in its rawest form for them, to understand and take in the sort of the place within. People do not quite understand the difference between a tourist and a traveler. If you could perhaps elucidate and let people know what the difference of these two terms actually is.
I think a tourist, okay, at the face of it, and very simplistically, a tourist is going to see, a traveler is going to
Sightseeing.
is
Yes,
going to. I think the see and experience are like the bottom line of the two people heading there.
exactly.
Does it have stuff to see? Yes, it has the hornbill, and you're welcome to come and see it.
Yeah,
But it is the back country to see, it is to experience. I think travelers look for deeper meaning in
yeah,
heading places. They want to see what is new. They're okay with discomfort while undergoing the journey. They're okay with, in my opinion, they're okay with, because they're
that is
seeking
very well.
newness out of the ordinary per se. Whereas a tourist has a set pattern of what he wants to see. These are not boxes to tick. You can't tick off-roading route from Shiloi to Laruri. That's not a tick mark. That is to be experienced. That is to be. It's far more intimate, when travelers
Yeah,
head out new experiences versus a tourist. There aren't things to show. I think the exhibition is part of, a travel experience is not there for a traveler. It is what it is. And you find meaning in that. I think you're going there
yeah,
seeking deeper, which primarily differentiates a tourist and a traveler.
absolutely. And very well put, Nidhi. And so people who are not really aware of the difference between these two terms, and people who kind of, have doubts as far as this is concerned, please make sure that you listen to this interview, listen to this conversation. You'll get it all ticked in the boxes in your head. So that was the wonderful Nidhi Salgame, ladies and gentlemen. My name is Sandeep with Jihan. Thanks so much.